B'Shem Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach. Tonight we want to learn about Emuna Lessons from Zohar HaKadosh. As we know, today was like Ba'omer, a very holy day in Jewish calendar, the day that the founder of Zohar, one who contributed to the secrets of the Torah, Sod, passed away. And based on what he asked his students, that they should celebrate that day. Our Chachamim speak about this because that was the day in which so many secrets of Torah was taught by Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai alav shalom to his students and to the whole world. So that's the secret of Torah. That is the last level of Torah Kedusha. As we know, Torah can be studied in 4 ways. There are 4 ways. Pardes, and that's the means garden. Pardes stands for Pirush, Par, Remez, Derush, and Sod. These are 4 levels of Jewish education, and the last level is the Sod, which stands for the secrets of the Torah. Now, in order to learn the secrets of Torah, one needs to learn the prerequisites, and Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai was blessed to get to that level. So tonight we want to focus on his life and legacy, and what we can perhaps learn from his teachings, primarily focusing on Emuna. As we know, Emuna is one of the 4 most important pillars of Judaism. As Habakkuk Hanavi came and he declared, Sadiq be'emunato yichyeh, that Sadiq lives with his Emunah. And as we know, Chut Shel Chesed, organization of Rabbi Arush Shalita, and many Rabbanim, they focus on Emunah. And if somebody has Emunah, then a lot of issues in life would not be an issue anymore, and he can live happily ever after. Something that many of us are trying to achieve it, but we are lost and we don't know how to achieve it. Without Emunah, a person doesn't have true happiness, doesn't have peace of mind, doesn't have the real enjoyments of life. And obviously somebody who doesn't have Emunah, he cannot achieve the full world to come. You know, many of us, we focus on this mundane life here in this world, but unfortunately we don't work our way up to the world to come. As we know, there is a world to come, and we can clearly see this from the teachings of Rabbeinu Shimon Bar Yochai. Okay, so I want to reveal to you a secret right here. This secret was revealed to me through Harav Eliyahu Netaneli Shalita. You know, as we know, reincarnation, Gilgul, it's a fact in Judaism that there are many times that a neshama can come back to the body again as a different individual. The neshama doesn't know why he's back here, but Hashem gives that neshama another opportunity to rectify and to fix his mistakes in the past lives. Our rabbis teach us that nowadays we are mostly the same neshamot of the previous generations, that Hashem is giving us last opportunities to come back and to try to fix up what we neglected before. And the secret of Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai is that he was a Gilgul also. So he was a Gilgul. Wow, he was a Gilgul reincarnation. He came back. He wasn't here the first time. Neshama, it wasn't brand new. No, it wasn't brand new. Even Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't brand new Neshama. So, who was his past life? His past life was he was a Navi. He was a Navi that he started in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. He was one of the Talmidim, one of the students of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he had a very long life. He lived around 500 years, believe it or not. He lived from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu all the way to the times of Shlomo HaMelech. And the famous king that in the beginning he was a good Jewish king, and unfortunately he became a Rasha, Yerovam ben Nevat. So Achia Hashiloni, who later became Gilgul in Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai, what caused him to come back again? I'm going to tell you what caused him to come back again here. So in the times of Yerovam ben Nevat, in the beginning he was a good king. Yes, there is another opinion that Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai was the Gilgul of Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, there are different opinions. Good question. So in the times of Yerovam ben Nevat, Yerovam ben Nevat had a challenge. The challenge was that the kingdom was divided to two parts. One Melech Israel and one Melech Yehuda. So there were two kings back then. There was a big machloket. Unfortunately, we have this challenge of argument and machloket. So the kingdom were divided. Some parts became for Israel, and some parts of Israel became the property of Yehuda. So there was Yerovam ben Nevat, who was the king among the Israel, and then there was this Rehovam, Shlomo HaMelech's son, that was from the tribe Yehuda, and he was the Melech Israel, Melech Yehuda. So the challenge that Yerovam ben Nevat had was he couldn't see on Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, only Rehovam be the king, and in the Beit HaMikdash, since Beit HaMikdash was part of Yehuda and Binyamin, so he couldn't really see it. And he had to stand up next to Rehovam, Shlomo HaMelech's son. So it was a little bit of a challenge to him. It was the challenge of honor. Unfortunately, as Pirkei Avot teaches us, people want honor. They are after honor. They cannot take it when they are disrespected. So he thought to himself that this is a big disrespect, and he started making plans to have his own type of Beit HaMikdash. So in order to do that, he came up with an idea to write a letter and have the rabbis sign it. So he gathered the rabbis, he wrote a letter, and in the letter he stated that I am the king of a Jewish nation, and whatever king says needs to be accepted by everyone. And even if the king says that you guys need to go and worship Avodah Zarah, idols, right? Everyone needs to listen and obey that. So obviously he wrote it there in the disclaimer that I'm not going to do that. And the rabbis signed it. They said he's not saying anything more than his duties. His duty is to do the word of Hashem. Back then he was a good person, or seemingly a good person. And when he said that I'm not going to, say, do idol worship, none of the rabbis thought that he's being serious. He said it in a example that even if I say so like that, everyone needs to listen. Obviously, no Navi or no king can come and say, go ahead and desecrate the Torah, go ahead and desecrate Shabbat or Chagim. Whoever calls himself a Navi or a rabbi and goes against the Torah or Hashem, unfortunately that individual is not a true Navi, is not a true king, is not a true Rab or leader, and that person doesn't get the honor of a leader. So he took this letter and he had Achia Ashiloni, who was a Navi back then, he was, as we said, he was around 500 years old back then, to sign it. He signed it, and later on he used this letter to go ahead with his agendas to take the power of Shalosh Regalim, the Chagim, away from son of Shlomo HaMelech, who was the king, Melech Yehuda, Rechovam, and he started his own sort of Beit HaMikdash in two cities, Bet El and in the Dan. So in these two cities, he started his own Beit HaMikdash, which is equivalent to Avodah Zarah. And because of this signature that because of the signature that Navi Achia Hashiloni signed of this letter, and he caused people to go to those places, it needless to say that unfortunately he put two big Avodah Zarahs, two big idols in those two places, right? And he forced people to go there and do Avodah Zarah. This comes to tell us how dangerous is the lack of emunah and lack of kavod. If somebody really is after kavod can destroy him. That over here we have a Melech Israel, and his emunah wasn't, lishma. He didn't have true emunah, and unfortunately he was after pursuit of kavod, and he lost it. So because of this, Arav Eliyahu Netan initially tells us, based on other sources that I am not aware of, that he was the Gilgul. He became a Gilgul to Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai was born from Yochai in a very old age. In other words, his father was very old when he was born. And as we know, the story is that Rebee Akiva, famous Rebee Akiva, that he became a big Rebee Akiva. He started learning Torah at the age of 40, when he didn't know even the Aleph Bet. And he was moved when he saw stone in the river and had a big hole in it, and water was passing through it. So there was a Chacham there, was a Talmid Chacham there, and he asked him, can you tell me why this water is going through this big rock? And the Talmid Chacham answered, look, this water penetrated into the rock little by little, every day, drop by drop, and this caused it, that the water now is going through the rock. So when Rebee Akiva heard this was like a big wake-up call to him. and then he decided to go and learn the knowledge of Torah and Yahdut. He said to himself, if a little bit can do so much, it's never too late. I want to go learn and study Torah, right? And he saw the wisdom of the Chacham, and he went and he sat down with his son in the Aleph Bet class. Aleph Bet, they learn together. This is Aleph, this is Bet, right? And so forth. And then he became a big time in Chacham, that for 24 years straight he learned Torah, and he had 24,000 students that we mourning for, that they passed away during the days in between Pesach and Shavuot. So after the 24,000 students unfortunately passed away, and one of the big reasons that they give is unfortunately they weren't mechabed each other the way that they were supposed to. They should have respected themselves, the respect of the Torah, that they didn't give that proper respect, and unfortunately they passed away. Now this week my Rebee Harav Issachar Frank Shelita mentioned something fascinating. What was the reaction of Rebee Akiva? What was the reaction of Rebee Akiva after he saw, right, that 24,000 students of himself passed away? Imagine if somebody has a big yeshiva and the entire yeshiva body gets destroyed, right? Lo aleinu, and so many problems happens. And the Rosh Yeshiva would be would be shocked. What would that Rosh Yeshiva do? Perhaps he would get professional help from psychologists. Perhaps he would become depressed, or many other issues would arise. But we see from Rebee Akiva that Rebee Akiva never became depressed. A Yehudi should not have this word of depression. Those that I hear, they tell me, we have anxiety, we have depression, and that is one of the most destructive illnesses. Unfortunately, it's targeting a lot of Americans, that they are depressed, they have anxiety, they don't have peace of mind. That primarily happens because somebody doesn't have good relationship with Hashem, doesn't have Emuna. If somebody has Emuna and good relationship, he would never become depressed. So Rebee Akiva didn't become depressed. He didn't give up. In fact, the Gemara teaches us that he went to, if I'm not mistaken, he went to Sipori, right? And he took for himself 5 students. One of these students was Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai. So Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai was the student of famous Rebee Akiva, and he contributed to Judaism so much. So many secrets of the Torah that we have comes from Zohar HaKadosh. Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai did not write the Zohar HaKadosh himself. He taught Zohar HaKadosh to his students, and later his student Rabbeinu Abba, according to many opinions, he wrote it down himself. So we want to learn the lessons of Emuna from Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai. The lesson that he learned was from his Rebee Akiva. The Rebee Akiva, when he lost 24,000 students, he didn't give up. You know why he didn't give up? Says Harav Issachar Frank Shelita, because he was very positive person, and he was the student of Ish Gamzu. Ish Gamzu is known in the Torah, in Talmud, that whenever something tragic would happen, he would say, this is also for good. This is also for good. My Rebbe Harav Eliezer ben David alav shalom used to always say when a person says Gamze Letova, the power of words, the power of those words that he orders, that this is also for good, would make the bad to good. So this is the lesson that Rabbi Akiva emulated, and he taught it to all of his students. He was very positive. Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai went into cave for 12 years, and then another year, total of 13 years. But he was very positive, very positive. He used that opportunity to become Gadol B'Torah. He used to, as the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbat, I'm going to quickly remind you of the story of Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai mentioned in Gemara. It's a fascinating story. Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Bet. And we're going to learn Emuna Lessons. But before we get to this, let me tell you about Rebee Akiva again, that he was so positive. He had such a Emuna that even when he was dying, right, the students told him, Rabbeinu, what are you thinking? Right? And he said, I was waiting for this moment that I would come to worship, praise Hashem with all my might, with all my koach, right? That I would come and worship Hashem and say Shema. So he was saying Shema Israel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and the Romans Yemach Shemam V'Zichram were using these iron combs. They were combing his body, right here, and this was like torture that they did. Nevertheless, he was positive. Rebee Akiva lived 120 years, right? According to some opinions, he was the Gilgul of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu came back to Rebee Akiva. So this from Rebee Akiva we learn so much. We need to be positive. Emunah, having true Emunah. That there is a famous story in the Gemara that one time Rebee Akiva, as we know, Rebee Akiva lived after the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash, the second Beit HaMikdash, the second temple. So he was walking with the other rabbis, and they all noticed that a fox, or maybe few fox, came out of the Makom Beit HaMikdash, where it was destroyed, Beit HaMikdash, and they started, they became upset. They said, oh look, this such a holy place now has become the place of the fox and dogs going there, right? They didn't say dogs, right? They say fox. And they saw Rebee Akiva was laughing. He was happy. They told Rebee Akiva, why are you happy? What's happening? Rebee Akiva said, because if you see fox is coming out from this place, and he quoted a pasuk, this is a nevuah coming true. This is a prophecy that there was a prophecy like that fox would go into Makom Beit HaMikdash. So this is a prophecy coming through, which means if there was a prophecy that this Beit HaMikdash would be destroyed and fox would dwell there, there is another prophecy, nevuah, that Hashem is going to rebuild Beit HaMikdash, the third Beit HaMikdash. So from here we see, unbelievable. He was so positive, such a emunah. So Be'ezrat Hashem should help us that we should also have emunah. We need to work on it. We need to learn the books. We need to get into it, right? We shouldn't be so judgmental. We shouldn't think that we are in charge. Hashem is in charge. If we remind ourselves the famous Tehillim of David HaMelech, that he says, Hashem ro'i ro echsar. If Hashem is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Then there is no point of becoming depressed. Depression. Now, obviously, we need to do our best. Right? We need to take the first step, and then Hashem will help us through it. So let me read to you a few sections of famous Gemara in Shabbat, Lamed Gimel Amud Bet. And perhaps we learn the lessons of Emuna right here together. So the Gemara tells us the famous story that one time Rebee Yehuda, Gerim, Rebee Yossi, and Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai, they were sitting together and they were talking. Rabbi Yehuda Gerim started praising the Romans. That look, this nation, Romans, back then, Eretz Israel was in the control of Romans. Romans had it in their charge. They were in charge of Eretz Israel. Unfortunately, they conquered it and they had it in their control. So Rav Yehuda Gerim, he said, look, they build us marketplaces, they build us bridges, they build us bathhouses. Then among this group of three people, Rabbi Yossi didn't say they did a good thing, he didn't say they did a bad thing, he was quiet. Right? In Judaism, Sheteka Kehuda Adami, if a person is quiet, he's admitting, he's not showing disagreement. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai complained, he protested, he said, no, they don't take any credit, they didn't do anything for us. Everything that they did for themselves. Kol ma shetikenu lo tikenu ela lesorech asman. Everything that they did it for the sake of themselves. And then he went off to explain that they made marketplaces as a place of gathering, and unfortunately coming after zonot, right, immodest behavior, and recruiting them and doing all sorts of the things that is happening still today. People who go to malls, people who go to places that there's a lot of big gatherings, there's unfortunately always people among them who don't come for shopping. They come to do other things. They exchange drugs, right? Unfortunately, they solicit things that are immodest. They get into illegal things, the places of gathering. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was a very big Talmid Chacham, he said the truth is that they are not giving service. They're giving service to themselves. They don't care about the public. That's how they're gaining their own agendas. And then he went on to explain that bathhouses also, they use it to beautify themselves. The bridges and everything. Bridges is for taxes. Back then they had issues with taxes. Right? Still today there is taxes. So the story goes on that the word gets to the government, and the government gave a decree against Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai to kill him, and they promoted Rabbi Yehuda Gerim, and they exiled the Rabbi Yossi, because in a way he didn't say anything. They exiled him, even though that he didn't protest it. They decided to exile him. So Gemara explains that after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai heard the story, he decided to run away. He ran away with his son. He went to Me'ara. Right? Where is this Me'ara? This Me'ara is in is still today in a. Okay, it's that cave, famous cave that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Elazar stayed for 13 years, is in the city of Pekin, is in Eretz Israel. There is anyone who wants to go there, they can go. And still the tree of Charnub, the Kerev tree, and the river is still there. So they went, Hashem made a miracle, and there was this tree and the river that they used it, and they had this they had their clothings there, and the clothings they only wore it for Shabbat, and Hashem made a miracle that on Shabbat they had challah and many other things that we see from here the Emuna that they had. They had Emuna that Hashem is going to help us. Did they pack up? Did they get worried? No. They went. They started learning Torah. And Eliyahu Hanavi came to them, right, and told them, the Caesar, the Roman king, has died. And the rule was that whenever the Roman king would die, all the decrees would be nullified. So immediately they understood that now they can go home. And they come out and they start seeing people working, farmers. And they said, why these guys are working for the Chaye, Olam Hazeh, for the life, temporary life here, and they're not learning Torah. They don't learn for they don't prepare for the world to come, right? And they were so judgmental that this spiritual power that they had destroyed that individual or started fire in the farms. So there was a heavenly voice that came and said, go back to the Ma'ara. I did not make you to come and create and destroy my word. And they went back to the Ma'ara, to the cave. They were there for another 12 months. So total of 13 months. And in these 12 months, our rabbis teach us that they learned the many halachot of how to be able to live with others. Even those who are less of a degree than yourself, the spiritual degree that you could see them, you could respect them. So they went, they studied Torah, they came out, and then they saw this individual who was running, trying to get home before Shabbat. And he was holding two hadassim. So they asked them, what is this that you're holding? He said, this is for Kavod Shabbat. So they asked him, why you have two? He said, because one is for Shamor, one is for Zachor. One is for the mitzvah of Shamor, keeping Shabbat, and one is for the remembering of the Shabbat. And then they said, wow, Ashrechem, that the Yehudim keep the Torah so well. So the Emuna lesson from here is, again, they saw something positive. They didn't see that he was running to get to Shabbat. Right? Our rabbis teach us in this Gemara that they went to bathhouse, Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai, and then there was his father-in-law, according to some opinions, that his father-in-law came there, and his father-in-law saw that Pinchas ben Yair, I believe, right? He saw him in that situation, that he had all wounds on his back. Pinchas ben Yair, yes. And he said, he started crying that unfortunately this is how my son-in-law has become. And the Gemara tells us that this started burning. The cry went into the wounds, and Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai noticed that he is crying, right? And he told him, don't cry. Ashrecha, praiseworthy you that you sing me like this, that for the sake of Torah I have sacrificed. So again, we see such a emunah. He didn't complain. He didn't say, oh, look at me, what happened to me, what Hashem did to me. No, he accepted with love. That's another thing that we should do. If we have Yisurin, we have to understand that that is the best way for us to rectify, to clean our neshama, and to come back to Hashem. So then, to make the story short, right, Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai was able to give 24 answers to each question that his father-in-law would ask him. Before he went to the cave, his father-in-law was able to answer 12 answers to each question. Now his son-in-law knew twice as much as his father-in-law. And that was the Torah that he learned. So from here we learn another lesson. The lesson that we learn in Pirkei Avot, that a person needs to be humble as much as he can. If a person is humble, then Torah comes to him, right? A person needs to be humble, and the Pirkei Avot teaches us that if a person wants to really gain Torah, he needs to become humble. Just like the water that is Ma'im Chaim is compared to Torah, water comes to the lower levels. Water never goes up, always comes down. So Torah comes to a person who is humble, right? So Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai was very humble. He learned the Torah, he taught others, right? And then one day he went to the shuk and he saw Yehuda ben Gerim, and he didn't tell him, look what you did to me, you caused me to go to, a cave. If anything, Yehuda ben Gerim was the tool, was the messenger of Hashem who caused Rebee Shimon Bar Yochai to go to the cave. And this way, all the Zohar HaKadosh that we have, Baruch Hashem, all the secrets of the Torah that we learn, and we, the Sephardim, do a lot of things according to Zohar, right? So it is important to remember that Be'ezrat Hashem, we need to learn more in life, have more Emuna, right? And od milevado, bitachon to Hashem, as Rabbeinu Elazar teaches us, right? And Rabbeinu Shimon Bar Yochai, right? That everything is in the hand of Hashem, and Be'ezrat Hashem we should be zoche to see Mashiach Sidchenu b'mhera b'yameinu. Amen. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Call 2.